Bonjour, bonsoir. C'est Planet Glee notre fois. And this evening we have an esteemed guest who is a visual artist, someone whose work is actually being shown this month, November, here in San Francisco. I think it goes through December as well. And yes, he's showing at the Strut Gallery on the third floor. They have a gallery space on the first, second, and third floors. This particular work will be on the third floor of Strut on Castro. So thank you so much for watching Planet Glee. And I'm excited to get into this art. I think it's really excellent. And to get to know our artist too. So thanks for watching. And you can see his, I put in his information, elkillustration.com and Instagram, but I didn't put in his name. What a dumbo I am. So, well, duh. Our guest's name is Emeric. Let me see if I can type that in there while we say hello. Oops, that's our two-shot. I wanted to go to camera 3. There's Emeric. Hi, Emeric.
Hi.
Thank you for coming on Planet Glee tonight.
I'm so happy to be here. And in all fairness, my website and my Instagram are both incredibly long.
Yeah.
If you want to nix the Instagram, you're welcome to if we need to make room for my name.
Okay.
Because those are, that social media is linked into my website too, so people will still be able to find it easily.
Okay. What a dumbo I am. Do you want to start by how you got into the show on Strut?
Sure. So I was invited into the show, which is called The Story of Our Lives, by Awan Mance. Awan is a friend of mine. We met because our circles kept intersecting at local queer art opportunities. For example, SF Zine Fest, the Queer Comics Expo, and we hit it off. We hit it off really well. And as an educator, I really admired Awan's work, and how she was bringing in all of the knowledge that she carried into her classrooms and also into her artistic practice. And she told me that she felt that my work would be a good addition to the show, and I was very pleased and flattered to be invited in.
Well, I would say that let's go to the two-shot. I would say that your work is the stellar
Thank you.
part of the show. Not that Juwan's work isn't good. I just think that yours is definitely more of something I'm gravitated to, which is, figurative work in a particular medium. And this medium you're using is
ink.
Pen and ink.
Pen and ink.
And they're big too.
They are. Yeah, the largest one is a little over 5 square feet, and the smallest is maybe 14 inches tall.
Here's one right now.
This one that we're looking at now is roughly 2 by 3 feet, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, that's big for a pen and ink.
Yeah.
And is this a self-portrait?
It is. I was about 13 years old when I made this. And at the time it was the thing I was most proud of. I think it was the first piece where it felt like I had struck something very powerful and authentic. At the time I knew in myself that I was transgender. But I didn't have the language to articulate that. I didn't have any examples in my day-to-day life or in the culture around me.
You grew up in...
I grew up in Portland, Oregon,
okay,
for the most part.
Yeah.
And there's some wonderful things about the city, and it certainly does have queer citizens and a queer culture, but because I was growing up in a small suburb just outside of the city, in West Lynn, I didn't really have access to that.
Okay.
And there was something about that portrait that just felt right.
Well, it's beautiful.
Thank
Very
you.
beautiful. And she's got a wolf behind her, right?
Yes, biting into her shoulder.
Wow, at 13 you made this. This is very, very good.
Thank you.
We'll talk about the wolf later. I want to keep going because we have a few to look at, and this one is excellent. Let's see, I'm going to, let's see, go to Timothy, and ask you what the wolf is about.
So the wolf is a symbol that continues through this body of work. As a series, it's called The One You Feed. And the...
I'm sorry, could you repeat that again? It's called The One You Feed?
The One You Feed,
Okay.
yes. And the first one, which I didn't intend to become a series necessarily, in talking about the wolf, I also have to talk about the story that initially inspired the first piece, and then carried through into this one, the second, and then
Let's show the second one.
all the rest.
So this is the second one in the series?
Yes.
Chronologically?
Yes.
Okay.
And this one was made a couple years after the first.
So you're still a teenager in your high school?
Still a teenager. I think I was about 17. By the time I made this one, I had socially transitioned, so I was using a new name.
What was your name before, if you don't mind us asking?
I don't. My name before was Emma.
Oh.
And the reason my current name is Emeric is because I wanted to choose something that actually shared a linguistic origin with my birth name.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool.
Emma and Emeric, the Germanic root of those names, of both of them, depending on the translation source, means whole and universal, or sort of all present.
Oh.
And I really liked that. I wanted to choose a name that expanded on rather than completely diverted from the name that I was given.
Yeah. Nice. So, this would be Emeric now? Are we Emeric here?
Yes.
Okay.
Here
cool.
we're Emeric. This is now a portrait of Emeric.
Wow. And did you feel like you had to cut your hair?
You know, I did at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Both that I wanted to and that I needed to.
Okay.
Something that you will notice that is different between the first and second. In the first, the wolf was biting my shoulder,
Right.
and in this one, I'm clearly antagonizing the wolf. And at least initially, the symbol of the wolf for me in this series had a lot to do with anger, feeling trapped, feeling like there was a part of me that I had been taught was monstrous that I couldn't express. And I had been really struck by a story that I later learned that the version of the story I heard was a mischaracterization.
Mm-hmm.
But the original story, the core of it, was still the same, and the core of the story was this metaphor
Mm-hmm.
that there are two dogs or two wolves. They're constantly fighting each other, and one of them will win inevitably, and the one that wins is the one you feed, which is where the title came from.
Okay.
That story really struck me because I immediately resonated with this idea of you have a choice. You can choose how to be in the world.
Okay. And was it art that helped you with that?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, in a very literal way, art saved my life. I think if I didn't have that as an outlet when I was younger, I probably would not have survived my teenage years.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, this is so well done, so beautiful. How big is this one?
That one is a little smaller than the first. It's roughly, I want to say, 20 by 24 inches.
And this work is on display at Strut.
Yes, you'll notice all of the images that we'll see tonight have that same yellow background,
Yes.
and that's because they share that lovely third floor wall on the Strut Gallery.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, let's go to the next one for a second here. Is this right? Is it this one, or is there another one in between?
There's one in between. The one between is just below, I think. I'm sorry, just below the second one.
We only have 4. Oh wait, what's this one? Oh, that was the first one. This is the second one.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I think I see it there.
oh, is this it?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Oh yeah. Okay. Oh, this is very different than the other two in a way. I mean, it's still the same medium, but there's a the bear is in back of you, or not the bear, the wolf.
Yeah, this one definitely. There's definitely a shift that happened here. The wolf. You know that phrase, "grabbing the wolf by the ears"?
No.
I think it's phasing out. I don't know if it's as well known anymore, but it's the expression can mean a couple of things. But the meaning that I'm familiar with is you're in a situation where it's just as dangerous to keep going as it is to let go and stop. Imagine grabbing an actual living wolf by the ears. There's no good way out of that situation. And I chose to represent in a very literal way that expression because I had just started attending college. I went to California College of the Arts. This was made in
Oakland?
Oakland and San Francisco.
Okay.
They're a 2-campus college.
I didn't know that.
Sadly, they'll be phasing out the Oakland campus over the next couple of years.
Oh, really?
But I was in my first year. It was 2013, and I was terrified. I was away from home for the first time for the first extended period of time,
Mm-hmm.
And I was very concerned about how I was going to make a living as an artist in this country and in this economy.
Right. Can I ask you, because San Francisco is so expensive, what neighborhood did you live in at the time?
So the only way that I was able to stay in college all 4 years was because I got most of my housing by being a what's called a resident advisor, which basically means that I helped enforce the policies of the residential halls that belong to the college, and was a primary resource for the students who were living in the dorms,
Mm-hmm.
In terms of making sure people were safe,
Mm-hmm.
Directing people to the resources they needed, and that paid for my housing. And so,
wow, that's great.
yeah, I can't imagine. I just can't imagine going through college. It would have been extremely difficult for me, and there are people who manage to make it work with incredible sacrifice because of how expensive it is to live out here. And so, at the time that I made that third piece, I was living on campus in the Rockridge district in Oakland.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's nice there.
And then later I would live in downtown Oakland,
Uh-huh.
on the corner of like Webster and 14th.
Okay.
And then in San Francisco for about a year, I was in this district actually.
In the Mission?
Yes. Yeah.
Cool. Did you find that did people know, I mean, that you had made a transition?
They definitely did at first.
Your peers in college and stuff like that, and your friends?
Yeah, and there were a couple of different circumstances by which my community would know. It would either be, A, because I told them outright. I was
okay.
very open about it.
Okay.
B, which was very common, it would be because someone wouldn't recognize my gender,
No.
and would misgender me, and
Yeah.
assume that I was a girl, and I would have to correct them, and then they would know.
Oh. Oh, wow.
But it was also a big part of why I wanted to, and still want, to make a career as an artist, is because I see the incredible value of art as a platform for social change.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of the work that I was making leading up to and then throughout my college years did directly address issues of gender. So safe to say that, within a couple weeks of knowing me, most people, some way or another, would find out that I was trans.
Yeah, and did you have that issue where people would call you her, or refer to you as her or him, or did you get him, or you didn't get him? How was the transition smooth, or?
I think it went really well given the circumstances.
Yeah.
In that, before I made that shift to college, I had already socially transitioned, so I'd taken a new name, my current name.
Yeah.
I had cut my hair, I was dressing a little differently. And then part of the twofold reason that I chose CCA specifically was because not only did it have a strong reputation as an art college, but I knew that in the San Francisco Bay Area, it would be much easier for me to have access to resources and good health care as a trans person.
Oh, okay.
So once I moved out here, I was able to start taking hormones, which, not everybody wants, not everybody has to do, but for me, I knew it would be the right thing. And testosterone's a powerful thing, I guess is all I can say.
Interesting. I just brought us back to the first one, so that we in this studio we can put images between us, so that way we can look at the first one was from you were 13, and then just in case anyone's just tuning into Planet Glee right now. Oops, where are we? What camera one to take that? Oh, there. Oh, hi. If you're watching Planet Glee, I'm here from Bay Area Video Coalition, and we are talking with Emeric Kennard, a visual artist here in San Francisco, who's got stellar work here in pen and ink. And we're talking about also social change within the life of an artist, and how art can really help out, especially if you have talent. I mean, there's a lot more to art than just doing it. You have to be able to do it well, and that's another self-portrait there that I have in front of my face. But let's go back to, let's see. Let me go to this shot. Oh, there we are. There it is. There's our artist. Yes. Oh, Emeric, I really do like your work a lot. It's not an easy thing to do with those pen and inks.
Thank you.
So large. What did I want to say? With your illustration work, you pretty much do your own on your own. You're like, you take on clients through your website.
Yes.
Which is what we've got here.
Yes, elkillustration.com. It's really wonderful to be working as a freelancer, as an artist, because I get to decide what creative projects I take on and who I work with.
Okay, yeah. But do you work with people sometimes you're not necessarily that interested in working for, but you like the art that you might be doing, or you don't want to take on clients that might be difficult?
I honestly can't really say that I've ever had a project where I wasn't excited about something in it.
Oh, that's great.
which I'm incredibly grateful for. I don't necessarily expect that to be the case forever, because survival demands we all make compromises sometimes.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've had the pleasure of doing some really cool projects with people and causes that were very close to me. For example, around this time last year, I had an illustration published with Bay Nature magazine.
Okay.
And it was for an article, a very powerful article written by Pendarvis Harshaw, about this concept of green gentrification in the Bay Area, that creating new parks or creek cleanups or other community projects that sound really positive on the surface can often be a vehicle for hiking up property values and pushing out existing communities.
Okay.
Which, having lived in the Bay Area now for about 7 years, is something that I've seen happen.
Yeah.
And it meant a lot to me to be involved in that particular project because it was speaking directly about the issues I saw in my own community.
Now, did you do pen and ink for that, or did you do different?
No, that was a combination of pencil, drawn pencil, and digital coloring.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's see. Let's go to, I guess, I want to see my favorite. Well, I love these, all three of these. But the one that I really want to talk about is this one. Let's see. Come on. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's this one here. Why is it not showing? This happens sometime here.
That's okay.
Is it this one? Come on. It's number 5. There it goes. Yay. Here we are. Yes. Now this is your most recent piece, no?
Yes, I finished that one this month.
Yeah, and that's the biggest one in the show.
Yes.
And Planet Glee is covering up that part. Yeah. Okay, cool. I love this one.
Thank you.
And the wolf is here as kind of like a friend, no?
Yes. I definitely wanted to mark that this is the first self-portrait in this series anyway, where at the time of making it, I didn't feel conflicted or tormented in some way. I am at a wonderful point in my life.
Oh,
and
excellent.
I wanted to make a work that celebrated that.
I just want to say something to art. Okay, remember that. Art can bring into your life good things.
Yes.
So, yeah. And Planet Glee is for the artist, always. Okay, let's go back. All right. Sorry I interrupted.
No, not at all. Yeah, the wolves in that piece, well, you probably notice there's 2, right? After there being only one wolf. The lower one's is a little bit covered, but you can see his little ears peeking out.
Okay, I didn't notice that.
And the main reason for that, symbolically in the piece, for the longest time I had really bought into the version of the story I had originally heard about these binary opposing forces, right? There's a good dog and a bad dog. Mm-hmm. And as I've gotten older, and as you've
gotten older, you're only 25.
Older in the course of this series, right?
Yeah, true. 8 years.
Yeah, older for me for the course of my own life. I've become a lot more critical of the idea of binaries in general, especially around gender, and I've found that I'm, initially when I came out, I really felt like I had to prove to everyone around me that I was a boy. And I leaned so hard into certain masculine ways of presenting that they didn't always feel authentic to me. Mm-hmm. And now I'm at a point where I'm comfortable wearing skirts and I'm comfortable wearing the jewelry I like, and I've woken up to the reality that my gender can be fluid. And I wanted to I wanted to represent that by having there be two wolves and having my relationship with them in the piece be a peaceful one, because the goal is no longer the mentality within the work is less centered now on this idea of conquering something, fighting through something, being victorious over something, and rather than being combative, it's more about trying to find balance, trying to embrace every part of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really powerful. It's a powerful statement too. Thank you for doing this work. I think it's so fabulous. And do you have a studio where you can work? I'm curious.
I do.
Good.
It's not separate from my living space, but it is its own room in my living space,
Great.
which is really nice because it's the part of the apartment that's just dedicated to making art.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
That's good. You deserve it. Yay. I just want to tell the audience, we talked a little bit earlier, Emeric and I, about a trans person that was central to this San Francisco Live series of shows. When we started them back in 2007, her name is Dina Boyer. And to any of the people who know Dina or have met Dina over the years here in San Francisco, Dina has been diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer that has spread to her stomach and her lungs. So as of this date, today is the 21st of November, Thursday, she just posted that she, only has 1 month of meds that she can afford. And so we're sending out prayers, and you can write me on YouTube. Just go to Jennifer Glee at YouTube and write me at jenniferglee@gmail.com. And let me know that you might be interested in maybe donating $20 or whatever you can afford to Dina's, the betterment of her care. So it's pretty sad, but it's very sad. It's, we're crushed, to be honest. But, and Emeric has very graciously given some of his time toward this. So you have not met Dina, I can somehow hook you up on Facebook somehow if you want, because I know she did a whole show on public access on transgender people. This was before we came to Bayback, and then I think since we've been at Bayback, she just was doing other projects and stuff like that. So, but we gotta vamos out of here. We're done. Let's look at this one more time. This is on display at Strut on Castro. You can see it for another month.
Yes, and in fact, the show will be up through mid-January.
Oh, good.
And it's 470 Castro Street.
Perfect. Yeah. Between Market and 18th.
Yes.
Yay. Well, we've got to say goodbye to our Planet Glee audience. We usually wave or kiss, whatever you feel like doing, Emeric. It's your call. You're on.
Farewell.
Nice. Okay. Bye, everybody. Thank you for watching Planet Glee. Remember to think critically. Be gracious.